Okay, so this will be a feedback slash critique for Ghost. I don't think I've done feedback or critique for you before. So, quick introduction. My name is Shazam, or on Discord it is. I guess in the server, I go by back 4 is true neutral, which it is. That move is busted. But I also go by Shazam. I'm in a few Tekken Discords. I like Tekken. I think the game is fun. Right? So let's get some things out of the way. I am by no means a professional at this game. Okay? Just let's clear that up. I am someone who plays a lot of Tekken, has played a lot of Fahk, fought a lot of Fahk, and watched a lot of Fahk gameplay. Right? Been playing the game for a bit, and I have a decent enough understanding to at least give some pointers or food for thought. Right? All I'm saying is this: based on my experiences playing, watching, learning, playing, and just playing against other people in game, I am trying to offer you some avenues of improvement that you can do, right? It is by no means gospel, right? Simply following my advice is not necessarily going to suddenly make you a Tekken God Omega overnight, but should help give you some pointers or at least some things to think about as to why things are going the way they are for you currently, right? All I'm saying is, you know, take what I say with a grain of salt, but just take it into consideration. With that being said, it's hard to gauge where you are in your Tekken journey. I want to say it's still pretty early on, and you don't have like terrible habits, but you still have some bad habits that I'm going to comment on. I'm going to try and talk about stuff that I feel applies at a early beginner level Tekken, right? Where I feel is where you're at, right? And then at the intermediate and advanced levels of Tekken, right? Because Tekken is a very different game depending on the level you're at, right? What a lot of common advice you see about like playing super defensive and compact and poking and all this other stuff. That stuff is technically true, but it's hard to really apply that at the early levels of Tekken, right? When someone will tell you, oh, you gotta play super safe, play super compact, but then you get steamrolled by some Kazuya doing 5 hell sweeps on you in a row. Early level Tekken, right? When you're just starting the game or you're facing other players who are new, it's a vastly different game than it is at a intermediate at a high level, right? So I'll try to tailor my feedback at each point and sort of describe like what should be going through your head when you're facing someone who is somewhat new to the game, when you're facing someone who's intermediate, or facing someone at the advanced stages. And I'll try to lean it more towards what will help you right now, and what basically some of the advice I'm going to tell you, this is what you should be applying right now. Some of the advice I'm going to tell you, this is something you should be you should keep it in mind. It should be a long-term goal for you to set, and it's just something for the future. It doesn't necessarily need to be right here, right now. I don't know what's up with that. Oh, okay. Sorry, I just saw your message in Zaibatsu. No, I think Vargas is memeing. I hope they're memeing. Anyway, yeah, no, Landon's a great source of information, and especially when it comes to Fahk, because he's put in a lot of work with the character and understands them at a very high level, right? Highly recommend his videos. I haven't watched the 5 tips that Fahk players aren't doing yet, but give that a look. Anything the guy says about Fahk, I would listen to him, or I'd recommend listening to him. But let's focus on your gameplay for right now and see what's going on here. Alright, so I know you don't know punishes, and I'm not going to harp on it too much, but I'm going to try and point out areas where you need to launch characters. There's 10 million moves in this game, and it's very difficult to know all of them, right? However, at these early stages of the game, a lot of people are going to be doing super unsafe shit, right? And you don't need to know every single minute punish and sort of perfect punish shit, right? But if you are not launching people when you should be, you will lose entire rounds off of that, right? Because you're just letting them get away with murder. So, not gonna harp on it too much, but if I see a situation where you can launch the opponent, I'm gonna point it out, and because you need to launch them, right? Like this Kazuya just pressed a button, blocked it, and was safe when he should have been eating 80 damage. Especially because punishment is one thing, right? Punishment as Fahk is a whole nother level because his baseline damage is so high that, you know, every missed launch punish, it's 70 free damage you're just tossing away, right? It's really hard to ignore. If you miss a 12 frame or 13 frame punish here and there, that's unfortunate, but you know, shit happens. But the launch punishes are very critical, or punishes like back one into forward forward 2-1. I'm not going to talk about it too much. Basically, if you want some early level tips against a lot of matchups, it's just, you don't need to know everything about this character. You don't need to know everything about Kazuya, right? You just need to know what are some commonly used moves, right? And what are the launch punishable ones. And honestly, it doesn't even have to be commonly used, right? If you're just playing your friend, just focus on what moves is he using a lot that you can punish a lot. Good Oki. So like right here, I think you're going for instant wall running 3 or 4-4-3, which is fine. Nice, good combo. All right, so let's talk about this, right? So you do a lot of this stuff where you'll throw out a lot of power moves, right? Down forward 2-3, forward forward 2-1, forward forward 1+2, but I'm not sure why. So what was the reasoning? Okay, so maybe you were expecting your friend to dash in first and do a move, as he might have been doing in the last hour you've been playing him, right? I didn't watch the full hour. I'm just kind of jumping ahead to some matches and giving my feedback because I watched a few of the early matches and I'm watching a lot of the later ones, and just kind of pointing out like, hey, here's what I think is going on here. Here's what I think you should be doing. So the thing about this, right, with Fahk, it's a lot more risky to do that. Let's say I play a lot of Paul. For Paul to backdash and just do that in my opponent, it doesn't matter, right? I can press down forward 2 and it'll whiff, and my opponent 90% of the time won't be able to do anything about it, especially online, right? The problem with a lot of the commitment here, right, is if look at Twitch is always so awkward because it always rewinds 10 seconds. Alright. Look at your leg and how really close it is to the Kazuya. And if your friend had the execution to back it up, you know, one on command electric, and now you're eating like 80 damage because Kazuya shits out damage. Fair and balanced character. True Tekken fundamentals. You might hear me bitch about Kazuya a lot, and it's just because I hate the character. But that's a whole different story. We can talk about that at a different time. Actually, I don't hate the character. I think Kazuya is one of the coolest characters in Tekken. I hate the community around him, right? Like, you'll criticize the character for having some dumb shit, but then everybody's just like, oh no, this character's true Tekken fundamentals. You gotta have so much skill to play Kazuya. Oh my god, his 50-50s are so hard. His crazy vortex knockdown onto Oki is so skillful. Anyway, I'm not gonna rant too much about Kazuya, but what we need to focus on here, right, is look at what you're doing by whiffing down forward 2-3 in your opponent's face, right? You are essentially giving them an opportunity to just say, launch me, right? Just launch me, right? So when you whiff a down forward 2, right, in an opponent's face, it's very different than if you did that with Paul, if you did that with Elisa, Asuka, even someone like Josie with an unsafe down forward 2, right? You have to be very careful with how you choose to utilize these big haymaker moves, right? And how you space them, because you're developing bad habits that are going to get you punished in the future. TLDR, The backdash into down forward 2 was not the worst idea, but you have to understand that Fahk has a little bit more risk involved when he does stuff like that versus a character with a more generic down forward 2, right? And the whole you want to start focusing on those bad habits and trying to reduce them as much as you can, right? You don't need to play perfectly compact and safe, but you just need to stop doing stuff that'll give your opponent free damage when they should not be getting it, right? If you're making a hard call out with like back forward 4 and it gets ducked, unfortunate, but shit happens. If you're whiffing down forward 2-3 in the neutral like this, you deserve all the damage you're gonna get as a result, right? You're gonna deserve all the damage you take as a result. What would let's keep going. Weird combo. So like right here, this is where it feels like this is where another point of where your defense is got some holes in it. And I'm not talking about punishment, right? What are you doing that's not able to beat the Kazuya out, right? What are you doing that's so slow that he's immediately you don't even get to see your move, right? You don't even get to see the beginning of the animation. He just stuffs you with jabs. And then for some reason, you decide to keep challenging him here, and he's able to continuously, just pressure with his jabs. And the reason your down 3+4 Sabaki doesn't work here is because he has so much advantage, right? Think of it like this. When an opponent has advantage on you, when they have plus frames because their move hit, they have a head start against you, right? If your opponent is +8, they can do whatever move they want and it will come out 8 frames before your move does. So for example, Kazuya did 1-1 into down forward 1. Kazuya's down forward 1 is 15 frames. It's fucking awful, right? However, when Kazuya does 1-1, he is +8 on hit, right? So his 15 frame down forward 1 is now essentially or just about I can't do basic math. 15 minus 8 is 7, right? He's coming out in 7 frames. Whereas Fakrumam's Sabaki should meet that at the point. It parries from 3 to 10, and it starts up at 18 frames, right? But because the Kazuya had a head start, because you hesitated, right? He's able to challenge your Sabaki. Oh, does it not punch on? Does it not? Yeah, no. It should absorb. It should absorb. What's the word I'm looking for? It should absorb mids, right? I don't know. But he's able to challenge you, and oh, you know what it is? Maybe your parry just whiffed. I don't know. He's able to challenge you because your timing is all off, right? The thing you gotta do in these situations is just block. Why are you so eager to challenge the Kazuya on when it's still like the Kazuya's turn, right? Now there's a concept called abare, right? Abare, where it's mashing, but it's because people say it in Japanese, it means fancier things than it really does. All it means is mashing, right? Mashing when you're disadvantaged, or mashing in general. And to a degree, there is a point where yes, you want to mash or disrespect your opponent because they're not expecting it, and because they're not expecting it, you'll get a lot of opportunities, right? Like hop kicking when you're doing minus frames, the opponent doesn't expect it, and then because they don't respect you, all of a sudden you get a free launch where you normally wouldn't. But I think that will happen at a more advanced layer, right? That'll happen later. But for right now, I think you're more benefited by just blocking and keeping yourself safe, right? Constantly trying to challenge opponents, and opponents who see that and take advantage of that, you're just going to get counter hit a lot, right? If he didn't do down forward 1 and instead he did like his power crush, any of his wall splat moves, another 1-1-2, it's very likely your Sabaki wouldn't have worked out in time, right? He could have just been mashing 1-1-2 and you would have been wall splat. So that's the thing you got to consider here is kind of like, when do you want to mash? I think the default should be blocking and being a little bit patient first, and then once you have a better understanding of your opponent's habits and timings, then go ahead and mash and challenge them. If you just blindly mash because you're freaking out under pressure, that's nothing. That's just mashing, and you're gonna get destroyed for it, right? But when you have a better understanding of your opponent's habits on offense and where you can disrupt them, suddenly your mashing becomes a lot more powerful. It's not just going to get easily punished. If you time it right, the whole dynamic changes. So that's the important thing to consider, is mashing just because you're panicking under pressure or you just don't want to deal with your opponent's pressure is very different versus, I'm going to mash here because I know you're not expecting it and you're going to do an option that will lose to it, right? So first, I think you should be comfortable just blocking, right? If you're under pressure, just block. Just block. Block, let your opponent press all their buttons, and then try to look for opportunities of where you can punish or where you can disrupt, right? First, understand how your opponent is attacking you, so that way you can figure out how to disrupt them. Oops. Down forward 1-4, it's a mid-high. You need to duck the high because, again, launching opportunities like that are very, very important. Does he have a mid mix-up after down forward 1? Yes. However, autopilot online Kazuya is oftentimes doing down forward 1-4, the high ender, because it's safe first, right? Is it a risk to duck it? Kind of. You're risking. Think of it like this. Yeah, you are risking a knockdown or some shit into damage, right? And against Kazuya, it can be scary. But the thing you have to understand is that you need to make him scared to do this safe follow-up, right? A duck into, again, 70 damage, because you're playing Fahk, who just shits out damage, is going to be huge, right? It's going to make him second guess. It's like, oh, fuck, do I really want to do that string again? Do I really want to risk him ducking and eating? Like, he should be afraid he should be afraid to be pressing that string as often as he is. But it's whatever. Oh, good duck. So like right here, let's talk about it. Okay, this whole sequence right here. This is the one where I feel like it's something very common in your gameplay, and I feel like you have a okay foundation, but then what you decide to do afterwards is very questionable. So like right here, you guys are just brawling it out. He's just stand blocking. He likes to stand block a lot. He's not trying to wave. He's not very aggressive. He's not doing a lot of wave dash mix up into your face and other shit, right? He's just kind of, I'm just gonna stand block and he's comfortable. Because you recognize this, you immediately start doing lows. Fantastic, right? This is good. This is great. Anytime the opponent is just stand blocking, Fahk goes, you're just stand blocking. I'm going to get my 15 to 20 points. Actually, how much is down by 4? God, down by 4 is so good. Oh, down by 4. Yeah, 20 damage. I love it. Fahk has a set of amazing lows, right? Some people really don't like his lows because they're like all unsafe or some shit. And especially in the Kazuya matchup, it's kind of awkward. But the thing you have to understand, right, is that he hits from super far away. His lows are all relatively fast, and they all have really good properties on either hit or counter hit, right? Down 4 seems like it's shit on paper, and yeah, sure, it is in some situations because you don't want to be -5 in your opponent's face all the time. It's basically homing and has an amazing counter hit property, right? And it's unseeable. That low is unseeable, right? Yes, it is launch punishable on block, right? But the thing you have to understand is just kind of like, Who is reacting and blocking to a 14 frame low? The answer is no one. That shit is unseeable. Nobody is gonna block that shit on reaction unless you are being predictable with your timing. At which point, that is a problem with the player, not the move, right? So I'm starting to ramble on, but the point I'm trying to focus in on here is, if the opponent is stand blocking, doing nothing, that's when you should go, I'm gonna use a low because I want to get free chip damage. You should look at lows in Tekken as a method of chip damage. The opponent can block any time they want, right? They will never eat chip damage like they would in like Street Fighter or an anime fighter or some other stuff, right? So why is that not always the best idea, to just always stand block everything in Tekken? Because lows exist, right? Remember, Tekken, there's lows, mids, highs. If an opponent just stand blocks your high moves like jab, they will technically be a disadvantage, but they won't really be too scared, right? They'll be like, oh, well, I can just block it all day, every day. But they cannot stand block a low, right? So you can press any of your lows and all of a sudden you get 15 to 20 points of free damage from the opponent just standing there. So now, instead of the opponent just blocking your highs all day and comfortably just holding back, all of a sudden they're eating damage and then they're going to freak out as a result. Look at how much life your friend is losing. That's a huge chunk, right? Any player starts eating 2 or 3 of those and their life bar just disappears, right? They starts disappearing. Anybody would be scared to start eating 2 or 3 of those in a row, right? So the opponent is just stand blocking. You start pressing your lows to get some damage. Good. What's the problem? The problem is what happens after, right? Why do you immediately go for a mid? Do you think your opponent has had enough chip damage to where they would really be scared, right? Look at your health versus Kazuya. He has a massive life lead ahead of you. Any risk you take or a big whiff opportunity and he can electric, you're gonna die, right? You're just straight up gonna die. If you give him another launch opportunity, you will die. So why should Jiraiya be scared here? Right? The answer, in my opinion, is that he's not going to be, because you're not doing enough lows to condition him to duck, right? To be afraid. The first thing to do first is, if your opponent isn't ducking yet, there's no reason for you to stop, right? Keep pressing down back 4. Keep pressing down 4. Sometimes keep pressing down forward 3. Because you need to start racking up that chip damage and make him scared, right? Make him realize that he can't just sit there and just stand block all day. Then once you see he starts ducking, once his life is starting to get low, and that's when you think like, oh, he'll start ducking, right? Then you start unleashing the mids. But let's take a look at that. Why are you using these particular set of mids? Why do I keep seeing forward 2-1, forward 1+2, down forward 2-3, right? I mean, I'm assuming the answer is because those moves have very high reward, right? They're your launchers. What's the best? What is the best possible reward you're gonna get for the opponent ducking? Why is this bad? As we see here, and as we see throughout the match, your opponent isn't always going to be just ducking, right? Your opponent isn't necessarily going to just immediately start ducking and eating your mids. It's very common for people to just keep doing low into mid, right? Very fast, do a quick low. They think the opponent's going to immediately duck, so then they'll do like a power mid. But that's not always going to happen. So what happens when they don't duck? All of a sudden, you get blocked and you're just letting your opponent have this free damage for no reason, right? There's no reason this Kazuya should be getting this free damage if you just chose any of Fakuruman's other powerful mid options, namely something like 3+4, right? 3+4 is a godlike move. Absolutely godlike. Safe mid knockdown that wall splats and on counter hit gets you a counter hit launcher, right? That move is busted. It was a bit more busted when it had crazy ass pushback, but let's different story for a different time. All right, so let's talk about that. Why do you keep using these high risk moves, right? Don't get too wrapped up in the reward. You can get a lot of mileage and power over just basic mids like 3+4, down forward 1, standing 3, right? The idea is that you're still getting some reward, right? But your risk is drastically reduced. Think of Tekken always in a game of risk-reward, a tug-of-war between risk and reward. Right? Sometimes, yes, you want to take these huge risks because the reward may be you win the round, right? But you also have to understand sometimes you need to focus less on the reward and more on the risk you're taking. If you're going to die from one combo, do you really want to be doing all these high risk moves? Right? If it was against someone else who you weren't fighting for an hour and the opponent wasn't used to your timings yet, then sure, maybe. Right, but Jiraiya really hasn't shown any sort of, oh yeah, he'll immediately start ducking and falling prey to your mids, right? It's just not going to happen. Focus more on, okay, I'm think my opponent is going to duck, but I'm not sure, and I just want to test them, right? And immediately go for your less rewarding but less risky options. Down forward 4, standing 3, down forward 1. 3+4, right? All of those are very powerful options that have immensely less risk involved than just throwing out launchers all day. If you keep throwing out risky, high risk, medium to high reward moves, you're gonna get better opponents are gonna be punishing you because these are bad habits, right? You're not gonna be able to really safely condition your opponent. You're never going to get that chance because you'll be dying. So experiment with that a little bit more, right? The next time you're like, okay, I think he's going to duck, right? Experiment more with like, okay, how can I punish him from ducking, right? Think of this tug of war, right? Like, how can I punish him from ducking but also still take the least amount of risk? I mean, the easy answer is standing 3, but obviously sometimes you don't want to be doing standing 3, sometimes you want to be doing something different. That's understandable. So then it becomes like, okay, standing 3 is not enough reward. So what's the next move I can do that would give me a little bit more reward but still not too much risk? Then stuff like down forward 1-2 comes in, right? Stuff like 3+4 comes in, right? So think about these moves and what you can be doing to always be supporting your game plan, right? And we'll talk about game plan later. Let's keep going. Nice. So like right here, especially, right? Forward 1+2, huge wall bounce, right? But you're safe versus something like forward 1+2 where you're stupidly minus. I don't really agree with using the wall bounce in this situation because the angle you're at, you're not really going to get a wall bounce from it. I think you have, again, I just think you have better options you could be doing. Right, but that's fine. It's whatever. See, right? He knows you're not immediately gonna do, like, he's very used to your timing. He knows you're gonna go for a risky mid option, and he's not in any danger, right? If he can block, I love back forward 4, right? Trust me, I love jet kick. That move is amazing. But Jiraiya doesn't feel any risk because he can block that move all day, and he's never gonna eat any chip damage for it, right? There's no incentive for him to duck. And this is where lows come in, right? Highs and lows are both beaten by the same option, right? They both lose to the opponent ducking. But there are situations where you want to use highs, and there are situations where you want to use lows. Typically, you want to use your highs like jabs, back forward 4, when you want to poke at the opponent but keep yourself at minimal risk as possible, right? But you want your lows for when you're like, again, it's that risk reward. Lows are more rewarding but carry more risk. However, in this situation, you need to go for the reward because Jiraiya isn't scared yet, right? He's not very much afraid of ducking yet. So think about it, right? It's like, okay, well, this is the second time I've done high or low into powerful mid and they're just not ducking. That should send signals to your brain going, I am not incentivizing my opponent enough to duck. Right. Mm, so here, I think you had the right idea. I mean, you should have died because he should have done wall standing too. But I think you had the right idea, right? It's like, okay, well, if you're not going to duck, I'll just keep pressing back forward 4. But you should also be applying that to your lows, right? It's like, okay, you're not ducking. I'm going to keep pressing my lows until you duck, right? Let's keep... He needs to learn how to punish that properly. Good challenge. That was very risky, but good challenge. Right, so let's keep going. Oh, interesting. Hey, you know, I respect the commitment. I would not have done that, but I respect the commitment. Oh, do you get it? Here. Oh, unfortunate. That's funny. I always thought his hell sweep was homing, basically. At any of this stage, right? Just think about like what you could be doing. So when he backs off and goes for the immediate sidestep, if you press down 4, trust me, it'll hit him. That low is basically homing. It doesn't say homing, but it's stupidly fast, and typically faster moves have decent-ish tracking. I know jabs can be stepped, but a lot of times, like, there are a lot of situations where the jab will track, or the opponent will not be able to step. Down 4 is a move that no one is stepping, right? They can sidestep and immediately block low and hope that they get it, right? But if they're just sidestepping or sidewalking, down 4 will hit them. Oh, I think you're trying to do back forward 4 on block. Maybe that's why that's why you keep doing magic 4. Right, so at any of those points, like when you dashed in, you could have immediately just done a low for some free chip damage, and then, you know, just dash in, down 4, dash in, do nothing, backdash, right? Always constantly mixing up your timings, but when you feel the, you know, a disturbance in the force, you just immediately press your low option, and then just be like, congratulations, I get free damage, eat this low. So I don't disagree with the decision here. I like the usage of 3+4. However, why would Jiraiya duck at all? Right? You've done like 2 back forward 4s in a row, but in the most recent interactions you guys have been having, you're just dashing back and forth, right? Why does he want to duck? Right? Again, it goes back into he's not eating any damage from any lows because you're not doing any lows. So why would he duck in that situation? I mean, you can argue that, like, oh, you're doing 3+4 as a keep out, which is kind of okay, but Jiraiya wasn't really forward dashing. I don't know, right? If you were aiming to try and blow up his approach, that's okay. It's not ideal because the whiff recovery on 3+4 is kind of ass, but it's understandable. But I still think, again, remember, when you use a move, think about what led up to using that move. Do you think it's like, okay, is this going to work out? Why or why not? Right? If you haven't done any lows, any throws, any really like crazy highs in the last like few seconds, do you really think your opponent's going to duck into your mid? If there's someone that you know that is flash ducking a lot, okay, sure, right? But if they're not, then why would they, right? If they're not flash ducking, they're still not ducking your lows, you're not doing any lows to make them duck, why would they duck into your mid? I'm rambling a lot, but you see where I'm getting at, right? Look at how the moves interweave and connect. The TLDR, the most basic ass explanation of all of this is, right, I want to do more highs and lows. So in order to make my opponent, like, to make sure they keep stand blocking, I'll do a lot of mids. Oh, they're stand blocking all of my mids. Okay, well, because my mids aren't doing that much, I can switch back to doing highs and lows, right? And then the cycle repeats, right? You do a lot of highs and lows, the opponent starts ducking, you read that, you go, I'm gonna go mid, and then they eat a lot of mids, and then they stop ducking, right? That ebb and flow. Sometimes you'll face players where you'll do one low into a mid and it'll work. Sometimes you'll face players where you have to do 2 lows into a mid and then it'll work. Sometimes you'll face players that you can do 500 lows in a row and they just will not duck. That is okay. The challenge and your job, your priority, is to figure out what type of opponent you're facing as soon as possible, right? If you know they're weak to lows, use the low. If you know they are weak to throws, use the throw. If they're weak to highs, use the highs. If they duck a lot, use your mids. That's kind of going to be a running theme over here. Launch that. Oh. That's... Okay, so I liked what happened here, right? I mean, this part kind of sucks. Rip. Every Kazuya... Dude, I swear to God, every Kazuya, no matter what level of the game they're at, their combo game's like always on point because they practice their fucking wall combo every time it does a shitload of damage. But then they're like, every other aspect of their game is ass. Sorry, I don't mean to insult your friend. I think your friend's playing solid. It's just kind of like I don't see that much crazy movement. I don't see that much crazy like on-demand electrics. But his combo game's like on point. I'm kind of like, huh. I mean, I guess that's like when you're playing Kazuya, that's what you'll do because his combos are cool. But I don't know. That was why. All right, good disruption here. Your opponent's too aggressive on their Oki. You toe kick them for safety, and then you get wall splat. What were you doing immediately, right? Why were you wall splat? What were you pressing? Why did you feel the need to press there? Think about your previous interactions with Jiraiya, right? You constantly challenge him on his offense, but he uses a lot of fast tools because he knows you're going to challenge and you keep getting disrupted. So why immediately wake up and challenge him? What balance, weigh the risk reward, right? If you immediately challenge him knowing that Kazuya has a lot of wall spotting moves, right, a lot of like scary tools that lead to big damage, why immediately just wake up and challenge him? What was the thought process going on there? Basically, why are you immediately taking on so much risk when you need to for now, right? I think there's an argument to be made when you're low on health, you need to start taking as many gambles as you can in order to create comeback scenarios. And I think at some point you will get to that level, you will get to those situations where you want to do that. The issue I'm seeing is that right now I feel like you're still at the level where you need to focus on how to clean up your tighten up your defense as much as possible. That's the issue I'm seeing currently. What the fuck is wrong with my body? Here. Oh, unfortunate. Oh, you did it, dude! Down 4-1! Alright. Good done. This move is fucked up. Down forward 1, Fahk's down forward 1 is one of the best in the game. Because anytime the opponent blocks down forward 1, they're in a rock, paper, scissors scenario, right? What do I mean by RPS, or rock, paper, scissors, right? When the opponent blocks down forward 1, they can try and duck, right? Because of down forward 1-2. But if they duck, they'll eat down forward 1-4, right? If they don't duck, if they stay standing, if you do down forward 1-2, right, you'll be safe, and the opponent can't do anything, right? If the opponent tries to step, you'll hit them with down forward 1-2. If the opponent tries to, challenge you, right, you're gonna hit them with down forward 1-2. If the opponent just stand blocks, but they're very passive, right, like they always block every single down forward 1-2 you do, you can do down forward 1-4 or cancel into a mix-up, right? If they're very passive, you can immediately cancel into a mix-up. But the opponent has no clean answer, right? If you do down forward 1-4, cancel into the hell sweep mix-up, the opponent's answer is to challenge you, right? Otherwise, they have to block a 50-50. But if they start challenging you, and they have no way of knowing for sure if you're gonna go down forward 1-4 or if you're gonna go down forward 1-2, right? They have to guess. And if they immediately go, I'm gonna keep challenging you, right? They'll do down forward 1-4. They keep challenging down forward 1-4 mix-ups. You can just go, well, I'm not gonna go into the hell sweep mix-up. I'll just press down forward 1-4, and then all of a sudden they're eating the mid knockdown, right? Or you do down forward 1-2 and you get some easy frame advantage, right? There's all these layers to it, but the opponent doesn't have a clean answer. That's why Fahk runs down forward 1 is one of the most fucked up in the game. It's great. Use this move a lot, right? Safe, fast, mid poke, where, yeah, your turn is kind of over at -5, but for the most part, it's kind of like, because of the follow-ups, it's not really -5. Right? That's kind of advanced. We'll talk about that later, but your opponent is very scared of the follow-up, so that, you know, simply being -5 is not the end of the world. There's a lot of layers that where you can utilize the move really well. Anyway, enough gushing about down forward 1. Unfortunate. No. That's fine. You're done. Messed up the combo. Oh, that's fine. Don't worry about whiff punishing. We'll talk about that later. Huh. And ooh. Right. So the round ends on what I talked about before. When you dash up into your opponent, you do a big risky mid. Why? Right? Again, I think, yes, the argument can be made is like, well, you're going to die anyway. You need to start taking those risky gambles as much as you can because they're the biggest momentum you're going to get. But I don't think you were necessarily at that level yet, right? I think the issue is you, because of the rounds leading up to it, because of your gameplay behaviors leading up to that moment, you took on so much extra damage you didn't need to, that it's kind of like the opponent knows you're going to take risks where you don't need to. So they just have to play a little bit patient and then punish you. And that's where you're getting killed a lot. You're too far into the risky side of things because you're too entranced by the reward. It's like, oh, I can launch them, or I can get a knockdown, I can do this, I can do that. But you need to understand the value of small Tekken, right? Let's talk about big Tekken versus small Tekken for a little bit. TLDR. Big Tekken is, I do a lot of big power moves, and as a result, I get a lot of crazy rewards off of it, right? Counter hit launchers, very scary moves like back forward 4, normal hit knockdowns, etc., etc., etc. These moves are typically on the slower side of things, anywhere from 15 frames and onwards. Some of them are like 18 frames, 20 frames, etc., right? Small Tekken typically moves that are very fast. They don't have a lot of reward behind them, but they have very, very low risk. They're typically anywhere from 10 to 15 frames, right? They're typically considered pokes. They are very critical to your game plan, right? They help you condition your opponent without going for all these big risky haymakers, which is the core issue we're seeing here, right? Small Tekken is the cornerstone of a lot of characters' game plans. Why is the opponent, you know, how do I say this? It goes back into when you use a lot of mids and the opponent's just stand blocking all day, every day, and they're not eating any chip damage. What do you do for that? You start using your low pokes. You start using your highs that leave you at decent frame advantage so that you can, you know, then look at your opponent and go, hey, better start ducking at some point, right? But a lot of those moves like are singular jabs, very small, very low risk, very medium to low reward, but the idea is that you're able to take your turn, pressure your opponent without taking all this risk on yourself. Right? And that should be something going on through your head, right? How can I play the game without putting too much risk on myself, but still incentivize my opponent to do stuff, right? Very critical skill to develop. I talked a lot this match. Did a lot of rambling. Let's do a quick wrap up. Right. Neutral. Punishment slash match of knowledge, combo slash Oki, personal opinion stuff. Let's talk about neutral. What do I mean when I talk about neutral in Tekken? It's basically, how are you playing the game when both of the opponents are just standing there looking at each other? No one's done anything yet, or you're feeling each other out. What's going on there? I talked a little bit about it for right now, but the thing about it is that you're just your mix-ups and your approach, you have the right idea, right? It's like, oh, my opponent's just stand blocking, let me do some lows and then do a mid, right? You have the right idea. I just think the options you're using to try and enforce that game plan are not working out in your favor. Sometimes it's because you're not doing enough lows to justify going for the mid. Sometimes it's the mids you're going for are just way too risky for what you're trying to do, right? You're not properly conditioning your opponent yet, and then you just take on more risk than you have to, and then Jiraiya gets free damage, or whoever your opponent is gets free damage. Experiment more with your smaller Tekken options. Your jab, your down forward 1, your standing 3. I would consider down 4 small Tekken. I don't think it's like a big Tekken move. It's very critical to your gameplay, right? How to utilize your faster tools better, right? You can look up videos on this stuff. If you're familiar with JDCR, he's a very, very good Tekken player. His videos explaining the powers of, just one jab, right? Why one jab is such an important tool. Yeah. And I talked about, why your over-eagerness to, try and challenge your opponent is getting you killed, right? You just keep pressing at times when you shouldn't, and that's getting you killed. So you need to understand that, just block. Just block. Focus more on learning how to remain calm under pressure and look for opportunities to disrupt your opponent. When you see that, okay, there's a long pause here, let me see if I can jab. Okay, cool. The jab was successful. I know I can jab there in the future, and Jiraiya's offense is disrupted. That'll make him second guess, and I can maybe move out of the way, get some breathing room, press a button, etc., etc. Or, well, shit, the jab didn't work. Okay, note to self. Remember, do not jab in this situation, right? So, block so that you remain calm under pressure. Why is this vital? At the early stages of Tekken, fighting against players who are early on in the game, right? Like that early level Tekken, they're going to be very aggressive, right? And it's very easy to rack up wins just by remaining calm under pressure, looking for opportunities to disrupt them with good timing with your counter hit launchers, or better yet, just block punishing, right? Simple block punishing will make them second guess their offense a lot, right? It'll make them rethink that, well, shit, he's just blocking and punishing me every time. I have to reconsider how I use that option, right? Think about how Jiraiya uses a lot of down forward 1-4, right? The mid-high string. Just one or two situations where you duck the high on a call out, right? You're calling him out saying, you are using this move too much. I'm going to duck here and launch you for it. Will drastically impact how Jiraiya is going to view the game, right? A move that he was using with no punishment, all of a sudden he's eating 70 damage, right? That'll make someone rethink how they're approaching the game, right? So, other aspects of neutral. I think that's a lot to talk about right now. I already went over it. Let's move on to punishment / match of knowledge. I already talked about, hey, you need to learn how to launch your opponent. I'm not going to go too much into detail. If you are curious about, hey, what are some strategies to use in how to learning punishment, then ask in the Discord, and I'll be sure someone will help you, or I'll just answer it. I don't care, right? But you need to understand, sometimes take into consideration how much health your opponent has, and if you were in their shoes, would you be incentivized to act, right? If you were Jiraiya instead, and you were fighting this Fahk and all he did was one low, maybe not even a low, into a big, and you know he likes to do his big mids that are very punishable on block, right? Would you start ducking, right, when you have a huge life lead? When, yeah, the lows are annoying, but they're chip damage. They're not going to be 70 damage from a launcher like the mids are. And if you block the mids, he's always going to do something punishable, which you can then punish, right? Flip the script. Put yourself in Jiraiya's shoes, and remember, it's like, would I really duck here? Why or why not? More often than not, you'll find it's like, they're not going to duck here because I haven't done enough to incentivize them. So I need to keep doing my options that incentivize them to duck. Combos / Oki. I'm not going to talk about combos too much. That's something you can do by yourself. I think you have pretty good combo awareness. You adjusted your combo routes on a lot of situations to get a better wall splat. I think your wall combo could use a little bit more work. Fahk best wall combo is going to be forward 3 2 3 a tilde 4, meaning you press forward 2 forward 3 2 3, right? Or 4 3 forward 3 2 4, and then immediate 3, right? Where basically you're canceling into the donkey kick. The donkey kick is your best wall ender because it's your best combination of damage and frame advantage, right? You want to be using that a lot. It drops on females, so you have to use a different combo. You have to use the knees. But in against, Kazuya, other male characters, you want to use donkey kick a lot. That move is very useful, right? Let's talk about other aspects of combos. I think your combos are fine. I just think you need to just more practice adjusting on the fly to take into account stage positioning, wall positioning, etc., etc., etc. Personal opinion stuff, right? These are options that I think are neat, but your mileage may vary, right? You got to use standing 3. Standing 3 and all of the strings from it are vital to destroying opponents. It goes back into what I talked about with down forward 1. When the opponent blocks down forward 1, they're in an immediate RPS situation, right? They have to think about all these different options, and the answer, there's no one option covers all, right? There is no option that the opponent has that'll beat everything that comes out from standing 3 or down forward 1. Standing 3 is also very long range, right? That's how a lot of Fahk controls the neutral, because he gets to press standing 3 and the opponent just has to take it. You need to practice using that move and its strings a lot. Are they gimmicky? Yeah, kind of, right? It can be very tricky against opponents who are familiar with the matchup, but his strings are so powerful, you need to be using them, right? Other moves that I think are neat. Big fan of down 4. Oh no, this low is -5 on hit, except it hits from range 3, right? It hits from super far away. When you hit the opponent from super far away with down 4, you essentially say, I get to have 15 points of free damage. What is the opponent going to do when they're super far away at +5? Nothing. What are they going to do? Dash up to you? All their frame advantage is now gone, and you can challenge them how you please, right? So experiment more with your range. One of Fahk's biggest strengths is his massive range over the opponent, and you need to be able to take advantage of that, right? So experiment more with, okay, how can I play at the mid-range? How can I disrupt and control my opponent from approaching me at the mid to long range, right? The best thing about Fahk is like almost nearly every single button he has reaches the entire screen, right? And using those is to the best of your ability is how you're going to be able to, force the opponent into your game, right? The most powerful thing about Fahk and a lot of the DLCs is that they force the opponent to play their game, right? The opponent has to spend so much work fighting you, right? They are not always able to apply their own game plan. Down forward 4. You used it a few times early on, and it used a lot in the early matches I was watching, but as the games progressed, it didn't feel like you were using it as much. Yeah, definitely use that move a lot. Just maybe even as a poke, long range, just press it, see if it works, right? If it doesn't, don't finish the string. If it does, or if you see your opponent twitch before you press the button, go for it. There's a lot, but I've also talked a lot, and I'm also not sure if any of this makes sense to you or if it's what you want to hear, right? So I'm going to cut it off for now. I hope I made some sense. I hope that, this wasn't just me rambling on for an entire hour and it's just pointless to you. We're all here to help in the Discord, man. If you have any questions, let us know. Just ask in the Discord. Like, what should be going through my head in this situation? What should I be doing here? What should I be doing there? What should I be doing? Blah, 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 blah. Just ask questions, right? Someone will answer you. I mean, 90% of the time it's going to be me because the Discord's dead, but right. You might not always get a response right away. I just happen to have some free time, so I'm doing this match review right now, but I'll respond eventually, right? Anyway, look, like I said before, I am not a Tekken professional. I'm just someone who plays a lot of Tekken, thinks about the game a lot, and wants to kind of be like, hey, why don't you try this stuff out, right? If you have any questions at all, right, just let me know. If any of this helped, right, if 1 second of this video helped and you're like, hey, that was really helpful, don't give a shit about the rest, I'm like more than happy, right? As long as it helps, I'm happy. All right? Stay safe, man.